A dream realized for 30 prospects who heard their name in the NBA draft. Cooper Flagg heard his name first. The Mavs got a redo, winning the golden ticket and drafting Cooper #1 overall. Dylan Harper goes 2nd overall to the Spurs. VJ Edgecombe 3rd to the 76ers. Flagg's teammate Con Knipple to the Hornets and Ace Bailey to the Jazz to round out the top 5. And with that, we say hello and welcome to a fresh hour of CBS Sports HQ presented by Jeep. There's only one, alongside Director of Scouting at 24/7 Sports, Adam Finkelstein, and CBS Sports insider Gary Parrish, and former NBA Coach of the Year Avery Johnson along the way from Dallas. I am Hakeem Dermish. The Mavs get a fresh restart, drafting Cooper Flagg with the 1st overall pick. And Avery, we go your way first. You were there. You were there when it happened with Cooper Flagg as he is selected #1 overall. What does it mean to this franchise to now get a redo, a fresh restart here for them?
It means a tremendous amount to this fan base, the Mavs organization. Obviously, new ownership that bought the team, a majority interest of the team from my old boss, Mark Cuban. This city is excited. And to basically have an opportunity where, got some bad news as fans, back in February when Luka Doncic was traded and the city was really, upended. But now, to come back, draft Cooper Flagg, who they believe could be one of the best two-way players going forward. This young man has a tremendous ceiling. And to basically insert Cooper Flagg into a lineup, when healthy, that's going to include Anthony Davis and Klay Thompson and Kyrie Irving. And, you have options. Do you want to bring P.J. Washington off the bench or start him or bring Derek Lively off the bench? You still have Daniel Gafford. They signed a little backup point guard in Williams coming off the bench who played at Arizona. So this team is a ready-made team. Cooper Flagg doesn't have to feel like he's got to come in and lead this team in scoring. I recently just saw my old MVP, Dirk Nowitzki, who led the Mavericks to the finals in 2006 when I was coaching and then won the championship in 2011, sent out a nice social media post welcoming Cooper Flagg to Dallas. So this is very exciting for the Mavericks, and I know they can't wait to get Cooper Flagg in uniform.
5th player from Duke, selected 1st overall in the modern draft era, joining Elton Brand, Kyrie, Zion, and Paolo. And Adam, this was obviously an A in terms of your grade. What type of prospect can Cooper Flagg be in the NBA?
Well, first of all, he's one of the most versatile guys we've seen in the draft in several years because he can impact both ends of the floor. He's a terrific defensive player, even more so off the ball than he is on. On, he can defend multiple positions. He's a terrific shot blocker. He gets his hands on a lot of balls. Now, offensively, he's a great passer. He's a plus athlete. He's very smart and a good processor of the game. We saw significant growth in his shooting this year and also more self-creation. I think that's the biggest variable when it comes to determining just how good he can be long term. Is he someone who becomes a primary initiator, your alpha creator, if you will, for an NBA championship caliber team? That's the question we still don't know the answer to.
The ceiling for Cooper Flagg is obviously high. That's why he's the #1 pick in this draft. But I think what's even more impressive about him is that the floor is so high. It's just almost impossible to imagine him not being one of the best basketball players in the world for a long time, barring injuries causing issues. He's going to make all-star teams. He's going to make all-NBA teams. I'm willing to say he's going to be in the Hall of Fame if not for injuries. The question I have, and we're really nitpicking here, is will he ever be somebody we call the best player in the world? Because when you have the credentials he has, that is usually the type of thing we think comes next. You're the best high school player in your class. You're the best college player in the country. You're the #1 pick in the draft. Will you be the best player in the world someday? Not a lot of people think he'll be that, the way they think Victor Wembanyama will be that. But undeniably, he's going to be a great player for a long time.
Would you still rather have Luka Doncic if you were the Dallas Mavericks?
Yes.
I would too.
Me too. I love Cooper Flagg.
Here's why. And Coach can speak to this. We saw highlights. They got Cooper, and there were still people in that building chanting "Fire Nico."
Yeah.
You have alienated that fan base, and I'll tell you this too. Cooper wants no part of being marketed as the Luka Doncic replacement. That I can guarantee you.
Well, he might not want it, but that's going to follow him because that's how
it's not up to
culture and fans work. He's not going to be able to dictate that. It's going to be what the fans say it's going to be.
But just to hammer home that point, like, I think the world of Cooper Flagg. I hope that's clear, but I know what Luka Doncic is. Like, I know Luka Doncic is one of the 5 best players in the world. I know that right now.
And he's only 25.
We still have to see if Cooper Flagg's going to get to that level. Will Cooper Flagg ever be as good of an individual player as we already know Luka Doncic is? I think that's a reasonable question to ask.
It's a good way to put it.
Avery, you think that? You think the Cooper Flagg will be as good as Luka Doncic?
In time, Cooper Flagg is a high-level two-way player. Luka, you know, from an offensive standpoint, the guy is extraordinary. But that's just on one end of the floor, and that's nothing to take away from Luka. I am a fan. But at the end of the day, you know, the Mavericks are going to have an opportunity to insert this young man, Cooper Flagg, into a lineup similar to what we did in 1997 when Tim Duncan was a part of a veteran team. We drafted him. You had David Robinson. You know, I was in my early 30s. You had Mario Elie. You know, we had guys that had NBA experience. Cooper Flagg's getting that same opportunity here with the Dallas Mavericks, and that's going to give him his best chance to be the best version of himself in time. We'll see. This kid has, the sky is the limit for him, because he can be extraordinary on both ends of the floor.
Well, it was Flag Day in Dallas, a big day overall in the state of Texas. The Spurs had the 2nd overall pick, selecting Dylan Harper at number 2 to pair with Wemby and a really talented young team there in San Antonio. And Avery, your old squad is looking better and better by the day. What did you think of the pick here to get Dylan Harper at 2?
Oh, I love the pick. I thought it was a no-brainer. This kid, the lefty, you know, out of Rutgers, you know, obviously come from a family with Ron Harper, whose dad had a terrific NBA career, but another guy that can pass, dribble, and shoot, that can make plays. You can't have too many of these guys. You know, good size. You can, you know, if you want to start him alongside of De'Aaron Fox, 2 lefties in the backcourt, maybe move Castle, you know, to the small forward position. You want to bring one of those guys off the bench. You know, the NBA season is a long season. De'Aaron Fox has to take a night off. Then obviously Dylan Harper can start and run the show. But again, with Victor Wembanyama being the last line of defense and knowing that he can play at all 3 levels, spread the floor out for those 3 guards to operate, man, I'm really excited to see what Dylan Harper can do in the Spurs uniform.
All right, so Avery Johnson likes the fit with Dylan Harper there in San Antonio. Of course, Avery won a championship with the Spurs, hit the game winner in 1999. And look, it turns out that Ace Bailey was not a good fit in Philadelphia. Dylan Harper's Rutgers teammate, Ace Bailey, doesn't slide in the draft. In fact, he goes number 5 overall to the Utah Jazz. Take a listen to his reaction.
So what's your overall thoughts about getting selected by the Jazz?
Just a blessing. I mean, the little kid in me smiling hard right now because I know the hard work, the sacrifices, the blood, the sweat, the tears, not just from me, but my family put into this. So to look at me and just smiling at me right now. So I'm just blessed to be here.
Had you had any idea they had any interest in you?
No idea.
Utah Jazz had a nice draft, Adam. You gave this pick an A. Why does he work in Utah?
Well, for a couple of reasons. Number one, they are still in rebuilding mode. This is a team that 3 years ago decided to trade Donovan Mitchell, trade Rudy Gobert, and rebuild through the draft. And they have had some attempts at it, but they have not yet gotten their future star. They hired Austin Ainge to now quarterback the draft process moving forward. And I think Ace Bailey is their best chance yet of finding that star. We're talking about a jumbo wing, a high-level athlete, and a dynamic shot maker. I understand their questions with his passing, his decision-making, and even his rim pressure. But the positional size, athleticism, and shot making, that is the foundation of an NBA all-star caliber player. If he puts it all together, that remains to be seen. But the upside to me is undeniable.
There are questions about him, and those are questions that make you lean Cooper Flagg over Ace Bailey or Dylan Harper over Ace Bailey. But I don't know many evaluators who would tell you in this draft there were 5 prospects more intriguing, with more potential than Ace Bailey. So I love what Utah did here. It seems pretty clear, based on all the reporting, that Ace Bailey and his camp wanted to be somewhere other than Salt Lake City. But if you are the Utah Jazz and you have been evaluating this young man for years, and you sincerely believe not only is he the best prospect available, he is clearly in our mind the best prospect available, you take him, you move him to Salt Lake City, and then you figure out the other stuff. He's a teenager. Teenagers don't really know where they want to live or what's good for them. Get him to that place, make him a big part of your organization, and I bet you things will work out just fine.
Rutgers had never had a top 5 draft pick in their program's history. They had 2 on Wednesday night in Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, the 15th college duo selected in the top 5 in the modern draft era. Another big storyline in round 1, the Brooklyn Nets had 5 picks in the first round and made all 5 of them, setting a draft record. Yegor Demon, Nolan Traore, Drake Powell, Ben Saroff, and Danny Wolf. Adam, this was an interesting first round, to say the least, for the Brooklyn Nets. What is your takeaway with the haul that they got on day 1?
Well, I think they had everybody surprised because of all the names we had linked to them, with the possible exception of Drake Powell, because we knew of the connection with his agency there. But what they did is they coveted big playmakers here. So Yegor Demon, arguably the best passer in the draft. Ben Saroff, arguably the best live dribble passer in the draft. Danny Wolf, arguably the best front court playmaker in the draft. So there are questions for sure, specifically with the collective shooting of those guys. With as high as they took Demon, that was, I think, aggressive by most standards. There are questions, no doubt about it. But I've said it during the draft, and I will say it again. This was, above all else, a bet on their player development program. They got high processors of the game who need to improve their shooting. If they can develop the shooting, it's very possible that everybody has a vastly different tone a few years down the road than they do tonight.
Avery, you know this franchise. Were you puzzled about their selections on draft night here with their 5 picks?
Yeah, somewhat puzzled because we talked about it earlier. I don't know if I see an all-star in that group 2 or 3 years, 4 years down the line. You never know. Again, Fink talking about their player development. I don't know if their player development is the equivalent to OKC or the Spurs over the years. But when you look at this list, who's going to make a shot? Who can consistently make a shot? Because if you can't, defenses shrink the floor on you, and then you're playing basically, you know, defenses will play 5 against 4, 4 against 3, 3 against 2, and they'll pack it in on you. So, again, yes, you can have playmakers, but if you can't make shots, there's really not as many plays to be made. So we'll see. I still have question marks about the Brooklyn Nets draft picks.
Again, an NBA record, making 5 selections in the round of the day. The round of the day, I'd probably sit here and say they didn't have the round of the day, even though they had 5 picks. We'll wait to see. We'll wait to see. I would probably, if I was to say, Danny Wolf would be the guy that becomes the lead of the pack there. We'll wait to see. Much more ahead here on CBS Sports HQ as we take a look at the odds to win NBA Rookie of the Year. Cooper Flagg minus 180. How about that, Adam? You lay down a little money right now on Cooper Flagg to be the Rookie of the Year?
Let me grab my wallet. Hold on.
Well, he certainly could be, and I understand those numbers.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, some of these rookies are going to go to franchises where they're going to get up more shots than Cooper Flagg is going to get up playing in Dallas. And statistically, that could, move it in another person's direction.
Don't forget Kyrie Irving
is injured.
Starts the season on the injured list. Cooper Flagg is going to have a lot of volume with the ball in his hands, even if Dallas goes out and adds a point guard with that mid-level exception, which I expect they will.
Back here on CBS Sports HQ, back here with Adam Finkelstein, Gary Parrish, and Avery Johnson, who joins us from Dallas. We're talking winners and losers from night 1 of the NBA draft. And among the winners, the Utah Jazz, they took Ace Bailey. They got Walter Clayton Jr., who you were exceptionally high on. Why did Utah get it right on night 1?
Well, first of all, it started with calling the bluff of Ace Bailey's representation. One of the 3 best prospects in this draft. To get him at number 5, that's a win in and of itself. But to not be not have your draft dictated by someone's agent is a win on your process for Austin Ainge in his first year running a draft room. So you've got a guy who has, I believe, legitimate star potential. And then with Walter Clayton Jr., you get one of the very best shooters in this draft. So Utah has some long-term questions in their backcourt. I know Coach is probably going to want to talk about Colin Sexton, his former guy. But is he in Utah's long-term plans? If not, Walter Clayton comes in, and at minimum, he provides on-off ball versatility and extreme shot making. I love what Utah did with this draft.
On the night the lottery odds were set, you're Utah, you slip to 5. You probably don't think you're in the Ace Bailey conversation anymore. But because of the way the pre-draft process played out, and they were reportedly trying to get him to drop out of the top 5, maybe land in Washington, then Utah was put in an advantageous situation. They just had to pull the trigger on it. They just had to be willing to, as you said, call the bluff. And they did. And it's smart because what were Ace Bailey's realistic options anyway? I'm going to go to New Zealand and play instead? He was always going to play in the NBA next season. He was going to play for whoever took him. Utah was smart to stand up and say, regardless of whether he thinks he wants to be here or not, we're not passing on the best prospect available.
Avery, the Jazz, certainly winners for you. They get Ace Bailey. They get Walter Clayton Jr., who's a bona fide winner.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, what Fink was talking about, you know, what's going to happen with Colin Sexton? You know, Walter Clayton Jr., you know, they draft him. Obviously, they think, you know, he can step right in from day one and probably start. So what's going to happen moving forward? I've heard Colin Sexton's name even in places here like Dallas, you know, trying to figure out if he can land here, especially with Kyrie Irving missing the first half or 3/4 of the season. So when you draft a player like Walter Clayton Jr., he's coming off of an NCAA championship, and boy, was he special in San Antonio in the Alamo Dome. I had a front row seat. This kid was sensational. So we'll see what happens, but normally, you know, if you're not going to move him on to another team, you're not drafting a kid like Walter Clayton Jr., you know, to have him play sporadic minutes. You're bringing him in to potentially start. So what's going to happen with the rest of the backcourt is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, and we're going to stay right with you there, Avery, because the Spurs had a nice draft in round 1 here. They get Dylan Harper, who everyone expected to go second overall, but then they get Carter Bryant later in the night, who you love that pick.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, this guy, Carter Bryant, has really good size. You know, he's versatile. We'll see, because the Spurs have had some drafts recently, you know, with some wings that have underperformed. So we'll see, even with a guy like Keldon Johnson, who I coached against when he was at the University of Kentucky, if he's going to hang around. Branham is on that roster, Devin Vassell. So they have some guys that have been really inconsistent. So we'll see, you know, if they're going to move on from any of those players, especially with their draft night guys that they think, from what I'm hearing from them, they believe are definitely rotational guys.
And also another team that looked pretty good, the Charlotte Hornets, Adam. They get Con Knippel at 4, and then later in the round, 29th, they end up getting Liam McNeely.
Yeah, and those two are somewhat redundant. I thought Con was a very safe pick at number 4. High floor guy who's going to be able to come right in and play immediate minutes. But to get Liam McNeely where they got him at the end of the first round was arguably the biggest steal, especially in the 20s, because this is someone who's a 6'8" wing who's super skilled, and you put those two guys together, those guys are just ballers. They're competitive, high IQ, skilled ballers with positional size. Now, there are going to be some defensive questions, especially in a backcourt, which already includes LaMelo Ball. Brandon Miller's not exactly known as a stopper either, so they're going to have to figure that part out. But they got 2 professionals here tonight that can help them build up their roster and their perimeter depth.
So often, even in the first round in an NBA draft, you'll see a prospect get taken and we'll say, well, I don't know if they're going to be able to stick unless A, B, and C happens. These guys are both going to stick because they enter the league with an undeniable NBA skill. It would be awesome if they were both completely well-rounded, future all-star level players. That's where you spend draft picks on Kevin Durant and LeBron James. Most guys in the NBA are not that. They're very good, elite at a specific thing. And with Con Knippel, we know what that is. It's shot making. And with Liam McNeely, though the percentage at UConn wasn't great, he has a reputation as a shooter. Charlotte just added 2 guys who are going to be able to keep the floor spaced for many years to come.
Well, Charlotte and Phoenix, a part of a trade. The Suns traded away Kevin Durant, of course, over the weekend, beefed up their front court here on this night with Kaman Malawach and traded with Charlotte for Mark Williams. Look, Avery, you look at what the Suns did. How are you evaluating their night?
It's an A. I give them an A-. I love both of these moves. Malawach, obviously, I believe is going to end up being the backup center behind Mark Williams, but this gives them size, real size on the front court. They haven't had this type of center position since DeAndre Ayton was traded to the Portland Trail Blazers, especially after they ended up losing in the finals to the Milwaukee Bucks. So you got more of a veteran player from Duke and a younger player, both that can protect the rim. I'm assuming that Mark Williams is going to pass his physical and be in the Suns uniform, but this gives them some real size to protect, the rim, good shot blockers, and also lob guys. You always need lob threats, especially in the pick and roll when a guy like Devin Booker is involved in any screen and roll action.
We got to see Kaman Malawach come to the stage, a big dude. We also got to see Young Hansen come to the stage out of the stands. He wasn't sitting with the draft prospects.
He didn't get the green room invitation.
He didn't get the invitation. He went 16th overall to the Portland Trail Blazers. He came out of the stands to get drafted, Adam Finkelstein. This was maybe one of the biggest surprises of the night, maybe the biggest surprise.
It certainly was, and I think a lot of people are crushing this pick tonight. But listen, this guy is 7'2", and if you watch his highlight reel, you will see some flashes of sheer brilliance. And what I will tell you is that this is a swing. No one knows whether or not it's going to hit. Portland doesn't know whether or not it's going to hit. Nikola Jokic was a second-round pick. Jalen Brunson was, I think, taken around 30. You can go down the list of guys every year. There is someone who vastly exceeds their draft stock. Could that player be Johnson this season? Clearly, Portland thinks so. And it only takes one franchise to invest in you. Now, there's some fit concerns there. I don't know how he plays with Donovan Clingan. If they think he's got star potential, I'm not sure how you nurture both of those assets at the same time. They've got to figure that out. But you're not going to hear me coming up and saying that the franchise who invested millions of dollars in scouting this guy across the globe and personality assessments and physicals and background checks and all that stuff has no idea what they're doing. That, I assure you, is not the case. But this is a big swing, and we'll see how it goes.
The reason it gets so much attention is because people like us have been talking on networks all over the world for months about this stuff, and nobody had this player projected in this way. So it's surprising. But like Fink said, I maybe didn't always have this approach when I was younger, but as I've aged, you realize you don't know what you think you know all the time. Every night of every draft, people sit around and talk about this is stupid, and this is smart, and this is brilliant, and this is dumb, and then we watch careers unfold, and we're often wrong. I've seen a lot of people mention Marc Gasol as it pertains to this prospect because, as you guys know, I live in Memphis. Marc Gasol went to high school in Memphis while his brother was playing for the Grizzlies, Pau Gasol. He was, let's just say, a heavy high school player, and hand to heart, this is true. At the time, I was a beat writer for the Commercial Appeal newspaper covering the University of Memphis men's basketball program. John Calipari was the coach. There was a moment in time where the Memphis staff was trying to determine if they should let Marc Gasol walk on, Pau Gasol pay for it, would he be able to help them at all at the University of Memphis in Conference USA? Marc Gasol went on to be a Defensive Player of the Year, an NBA All-Star. His name is hanging in the rafters at FedEx Forum. We don't know. This is not what I would have done. It surprised me, but I'm willing to take a wait-and-see approach and see how it plays out.
We don't know.
So Young Hansen from in the stands to in the Hall of Fame, perhaps.
Well, he's on the All-Star team with Danny Wolf at Memphis.
There you go. Perhaps. We're going to get there in a minute. Avery, what do you think of this this pick, 16th overall? Look, he's 19 years old. He's young. I mean, look, maybe this pans out, and we're sitting here going back to 2025, 5 years later, and we're going, man, this guy's awesome.
It's a possibility. There's so many unanswered questions about a lot of these players, even the ones that we're higher on. They haven't played in an NBA game. I'm waiting to see some of these guys play in the Las Vegas Summer League starting on July 10th. And we'll see what happens there. Maybe some of our opinions will change, maybe not. But again, this young man, that Portland obviously think he has tremendous upside. You know, he's a little bit slow-footed right now. We'll see how he develops. You know, GP made the comparison, with Marc Gasol. I think if he's 3/4 of Marc Gasol, Portland will be excited about that pick. Here's a team that's currently, I believe, up for sale by the trust of the former owners. So, again, a lot of question marks here. I think let's check back in 2 or 3 years and see how this young man is progressing.
Yeah, I just don't understand the pick with Donovan Clingan. But, hey, look, they don't pay me to make selections to an NBA team. They just pay me to talk about selections in the NBA and other sports as well. The Nets made 5 selections, Gary. Did they get it wrong? Are they the biggest loser of the night?
Well, let's preface it by reminding what we said a minute ago, which is you never really know. I mean, we can give out all the grades we want tonight. In 5 years, some of them are going to be wrong in both directions. But I can reasonably put it this way. If I were running the Brooklyn franchise, this is not the 5-player haul I would have wanted to come out of this. At least 4 of those players, if you just, Google the scouting report on them, somewhere in the room for improvement, areas of concern is going to be shooting. Like 80% of your draft class needs to be able to shoot the ball better than they've ever shot it in their entire life. That doesn't mean that you can't get there. Like Fink said, this is a organization that has a reputation for being able to develop young players, but there's a lot of development that's going to have to take place there, or else we're going to look back on this draft and go, they didn't get it right.
They didn't get it right.
You're willing to say that right now?
They didn't get it right.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you can go down, and each player on that list, though, has a defining skill. Yegor Demin, elite passer. Danny Wolf, elite skill for his size. Drake Powell, elite defender. Ben Seraph, elite live ball passer. So we'll have to see.
We'll have to see. We will have to see. And look, you want more NBA draft content? Oh, we've got it. Gary Parrish, Matt Norlander have a special Eye on College Basketball podcast reacting to everything you need to know from round 1, as well as previewing what to expect on night 2. The Eye on College Basketball podcast. Download and follow right now. Back here on CBS Sports HQ, day 2 of the NBA draft, Thursday night. Here's a look at the best available players according to CBSSports.com, including Rasheer Fleming out of Boston College, Ryan Kalkbrenner out of Creighton, and you got Janai Broom, the SEC Player of the Year, still on the board heading into round 2. All right, back here with Adam Finkelstein, Gary Parrish, Avery Johnson. You see him there. Remember, Minnesota has the #1 pick here, the top pick, the first pick in the 2nd round. And Adam, you looked at the board, you saw who's available, who's the prospect you liked, and then who's the prospect that fits in Minnesota?
Well, I like Noah Penda. Noah Penda, I think, at this point in the 2nd round, you're looking, quite frankly, just for an NBA player, someone who you think has the best chance to make it in the league. You're not swinging for the fences because the chances of hitting are few and far between. Noah Penda is first of all, he's got an NBA-ready body. He's strong, he's got big hands, he's got long arms. He is a playmaking defender. His defensive metrics are off the charts, and he's a very good passer. Now, I know I've said this repeatedly tonight, but the shooting is the swing skill. If he can make shots, he's a long-term NBA player, but he already does a number of things very well, including the body type. So he is someone at this spot in the draft that I would be very interested in.
Yeah, the Frenchmen are ready to play. I mean, we saw several of them drafted in the 1st round on Wednesday.
Yeah, they're going to make the All-Star game United States versus the world. It might just end up being the United States against France, and we can leave everybody else out of it. For me, the best prospect available heading into the 2nd round is going to be Rasheer Fleming. This is a young man who 6'9", he's 230 pounds. He's got a 7'5" wingspan, shot 39% from 3. He's a good athlete. So in my final mock draft for CBSSports.com, 27 of the players I had going in the top 30 are already off the board. Rasheer Fleming is one of the 3 that isn't, and that would by definition make him the best prospect available, at least in my mind. I had him going 27th in my final mock.
All right, Avery, for you, when you look at your best available prospect, who do you like there that's still on the board?
Well, I like both Adams and GP's prospect. I'm just going to go a little bit further down. He's not nearly rated as high on their list, but I do like Kobe Brea. You know, I covered Kobe when he was at Dayton. You know, this guy's a sharpshooter, led the nation in three-point shooting, 50% 2 years ago, shot it extremely well at Kentucky. No, he's doesn't have the best wingspan or athleticism, but I believe similar to what Wiggins provides for OKC coming off the bench, Kobe Brea could be a similar player, a 10th man in a rotation, knowing what his strength is. His shooting can be transitional to the NBA. You can never overlook a guy that can knock down three-point shots and knock down three-point shots 1 or 2 steps or 3 steps behind the three-point line to create space for his teammates. So I like Kobe Brea, and it'll be interesting to see where he goes tomorrow if he's drafted in the 2nd round.
Adam, one of the players still on the board is the SEC Player of the Year, Johni Broome. Not all that surprising. This is where he was supposed to be in this range. It's a name because people know him from in the NCAA tournament. He's SEC Player of the Year. He got injured, had a heck of a season, of course, but this is right basically where his range is.
Yeah, Ryan Kalkbrenner, Maxime Renaud still on the board as well. So I think there's a handful of college bigs who are probable NBA players. Johni Broome's role in the NBA is going to be vastly different than it was at Auburn, but I think it's the gains he showed late in that Auburn career that gives him more potential to stick in the NBA. We started to see him do more with the ball, being able to play out of dribble handoffs, being able to pass, and those are skills that are very translatable to NBA offense. We know he can bang inside, be physical, rebound, and that's going to be his role. He's not going to be asked to be an offensive focal point, but if he can step to the perimeter and operate within sets, within those handoffs and ball screens, short rolls, things like that, those are skill sets that he added late at Auburn that could be very important to his NBA career.
The issues facing him is a little older than your typical prospect at this stage in his career. And frankly, he doesn't move like an NBA player. He went to the combine, he jumped. It wasn't very good. That went viral. So there's a lot of things working against him, but there will be a franchise, I believe, somewhere in the 2nd round who's saying we can take this guy, he's ready to play right now, will never be a star, but he can be in our rotation perhaps and on a very cheap 2nd round contract. With the second apron and all these tax bills we're hearing about, it is crucial to have rotation players on small contracts, and you're going to see a lot of that in the 2nd round. People grabbing players they think can help them and putting them on 4-year, $8 million deals.
And remember, the depth of this 2nd round has been impacted by the amount of kids going back to college for NIL paydays.
Absolutely. Avery, as a former head coach, what should you expect to get out of the 2nd round? What are you looking for?
I'm looking, number one, for a guy, especially during practice, because a lot of times as the season wears on, you need your 2nd round players to be available for practice, to help push some of the guys. I'm looking for a guy that if, a starter needs to take a break or if he gets injured, he can come in and give me 12 good minutes that I can depend on. Maybe a guy that can bounce back and forth, potentially on a 2-way contract, but somebody that's going to have energy every day in practice, be attentive in film sessions. Maybe I can use him, on the West Coast or East Coast road trip, play a few minutes, but at the end of the day, have the right type of attitude because, it's not always about talent with 2nd round draft picks. It's all the intangibles.
Avery Johnson certainly had that as a player. Avery Johnson, Adam Finkelstein, Gary Parrish here with us on CBS Sports HQ. The Minnesota Timberwolves have the first pick in the 2nd round, followed by the Celtics, and back-to-back picks by the Hornets as you take a look at the first 10 picks in the 2nd round. And you can get even more content on CBSSports.com. Our experts delivering pick-by-pick grades and analysis. Our live NBA draft coverage will continue on Thursday right here on CBS Sports HQ.